Hi everyone! I'm here today to share my Bout of Books wrap-up. At the time that I'm filming this, there are still a few hours left in the readathon and I haven't completed my TBR goals. However, the sad fact is I won't have a lot of time to film this week, so I thought that I would go ahead and do this. By the time that I'm posting this, hopefully I'll have everything read that I want to have read. Fingers crossed, we'll see. The first book that I read during the readathon was The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. This is a book of Angela Carter's dark feminist fairy tale stories. Even though I love fairy tales, I've never read Angela Carter before, though I know that she's a huge name in fairy tale American history. This book was incredible. I already have a full review of it ready to go, so I don't want to get too deep into the details, but for me personally, this book was a lesson in what a short story collection can be. Typically when I read a collection of short stories, it can tend to feel a bit haphazard or like there are a few stories in there that probably should not have made the cut, but that is not the case for this book. It almost felt like an album of music, if that makes any sense, and I'm going to expand on that further in my review when I talk a little bit about the musicality of this book. For the moment, I'm very interested in knowing where I should continue with A, Angela Carter's work, and B, collections of fairy tale retelling, so if you have any thoughts on that, please let me know. The next book that I read was a deviation from my original TBR video. It is the graphic novel My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness by Nagata Kabi. This made it onto my TBR so quickly because it was bought for me by a friend. I don't typically buy graphic novels for myself, but I did happen to read Fun Home and Are You My Mother earlier this year, so I thought that the lesbian graphic memoir game was done for me for the year because nothing can compete with those. And I will say that this one was quite a fun occupation for the few hours that I read it. Despite the title and the sort of lurid cover, this is a graphic novel that purports to be about the author's loss of virginity when she's 28 years old, and although that is in there and that is what it sort of circulates around, it's actually more of a story about her struggles with depression and anxiety and trying to live up to her parents' expectations. It's a very honest portrayal, and if you like memoirs about personal struggle, I think that this one is very revealing. The art style is in tones of pink and white. I'm not sure how well that's showing up on camera, but it's also very manga-like, it's sort of sketchy, and you do read it backwards like a manga novel. So as far as this book goes, if anyone has any suggestions for LGBT graphic novels, I would be happy to hear them. The next book that I completed was Once Upon a Time, A Short History of Fairy Tale by Marina. This book is exactly what it purports to be as a short history of fairy tales, and I'm not new to fairy tales, although I am just venturing into retellings and into academic work, and that's where this has been very helpful as a directory into certain subjects. This book is very good if you want a place where all of the ideas of fairy tales are sort of wrapped up and stitched together, and if you would like to glean a larger reading list on these ideas. If you're very new to fairy tales, you haven't really read many of them, I would suggest starting with a compilation because this one does talk about fairy tales as if you're familiar with a whole lot of them. If you have already read a lot of fairy tales and you're interested in knowing more about the history and theory behind them, this is probably a very good place to start. If you've watched my TBR, you know that I have another book of Marina Warner's work, so I would like to dive in a little deeper to what she has to say beyond an introductory lesson. And the last book that I've started and not yet finished is Mr. Fox by Helen Oyeyemi. I don't know how well it's coming across on camera, but this book sustained a bit of water damage, unfortunately. I was out for a walk to go watch the sunset, and I brought this book with me and I got caught in a storm and it soaked through my little canvas bag, and so now unfortunately this book is not as pretty as it once was. However, I'm quite interested in finishing it. I've only read a little bit of it, but that little bit that I've read was very quick and very engaging, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to finish this before the official end of the readathon, but if not, I will eventually finish it and have a full review for you. So that is my quick wrap-up. Keep an eye out for reviews of The Bloody Chamber and Mr. Fox, and for my further videos on fairy tales and other reading. Thank you very much for watching. I will talk to you again soon.